Hello everybody, welcome to this help video for lesson 10 in the London folder on Microsoft Teams, and it's the second part of the lesson looking at how urban change has created challenges in London, and we are looking particularly at social deprivation. So just to remind you what that means, so social deprivation is when people living in an area do not have access to the facilities that they need to make sure that they have a good quality of life. So maybe they've not got access to good housing, well-paying jobs, good levels of education and good levels of healthcare. Now, last lesson we looked at examples of two different places. We looked at Knightsbridge and we looked at Westham. And so we need to look at this map. And this map shows us levels of deprivation across the whole of London. And we've got low deprivation, so people who are wealthy and have access to all the things that they need are here in the blue. And then we go through the colour scheme up to the red, which is high deprivation. So these are the people that do not have access to good quality housing or good quality healthcare. Don't get confused by low and high. Remember, deprivation is when you don't have something. So the people with high deprivation are the people who are worst off, and the people with low deprivation are the people who are best off. Now, Knightsbridge is here in this west central area, and we can see that is shaded in the sort of blue colours, whereas Westham is in this area, city and east. We can see a very different picture. We've got the red colours, so we can see how that level of deprivation is changing as we move from west to east. Now, if you want to have a look at maps like this in a little bit more detail, if you follow this link, and I'll put it in the description at the bottom if you're using the YouTube video, and it will take you to a website, and I'm just going to show you briefly how you can use it. So this is the website that the link will take you to, and it's simply a website that shows you the whole of the country, and it uses colours to show you where places in the country are on this, the index of multiple deprivation. Now, what this means is that they've used lots of different sorts of deprivation in order to give each place a score. So this includes things like education, healthcare, life expectancy, access to houses, wages, all sorts of different things all put in together. It's got a similar colour scheme to the one we were just looking at, where red is the most deprived, but rather than blue for the least deprived, we've got green. And you can use these tabs here to zoom in and out. And if you want to move the map around, you just click on it and you can pull your mouse about and move it. So if I just zoom in on Sheffield, which is where I live, just to show you how it works. And as we get closer and closer in, then we can really see that Sheffield is a city very much of two halves. We have this southwestern area, which is generally speaking got far lower levels of deprivation, and then this central and eastern area with far higher levels of deprivation. Now, we can explain this in geography because this here is the Peak District. So this southwestern area is very desirable. It's seen as having the best of both worlds. You're in the city with all the amenities, but you're right next door to the Peak District. Whereas these central and eastern areas, these are the old industrial areas of steelworks and factories that have since closed down. So these areas, decent paying jobs are far harder to come by, and you've got a lot more deprivation. Now, this area here on the map, this gives you quite a lot of nice information, because what it does is it gives you a rank for where that place is in the whole country, and it changes to tell you where it is on this area here on this chart. So as you move your mouse around, you can see that it's changing, and so you can get a really clear idea of where places are. And the higher the number in that rank, the least deprived the area is. Okay, so as we go over to the poorer areas, you can see the numbers are getting much, much lower. And over in these higher areas with more wealth, the numbers are much higher. So it's quite nice to have a little play around with if you're interested in having a look at a few different parts of the country. Now going back to our lesson, we're going to have a little look at Knightsbridge and Westham in a bit more detail. So you need to click on this video link for me, please. It's a little video all about Knightsbridge. Don't feel like you've got to watch all of it. You can just sort of skim through it just to try and get an idea of what Knightsbridge is like. So I'll put this link in the bottom with the video description. And while you're watching the video, just pay attention to things like the buildings, the type of people, what sort of clothes they're wearing, the sort of handbags they're carrying, that kind of thing. And then when you've done that, try to have a go at summing up Knightsbridge in 10 words. So pause the video and have a go at that, please. So now that you've watched the video, hopefully you've got a really clear idea of just how wealthy Knightsbridge is. From an industry point of view, it relies very, very heavily on very top-end retail, really expensive shops, and the people that are shopping there, they certainly look very well groomed, they look wealthy. So you should have hopefully been able to write quite easily 10 words to describe it. Now I've got a bit of a more detailed activity to do for Westham. So again, you need to follow this video link, and then I want you to have a go at answering these 5 questions. So watch the video, pause this video and have a go at doing this, please. And again, I will put this link in the description at the bottom of this video for you. Now I just want to go through a few of these with you to make sure that you pick these things up from the video. So for question 2, one of the men that they were interviewing said that he thought it would be better with the football stadium moving because it would reduce the congestion and it would reduce how busy it was in the local area. And certainly if any of you live near a football stadium or you go to see the football regularly, you'll know that it gets really, really crowded on the streets and on the roads when the football is on. So you can understand if that man lives in that area why he feels that way. Now for question 3, you've got something very different. You've got people who are concerned, and the people that were concerned are those that sort of run the fast food places, so fish and chip shop, burger joint, people working on the market, because they were saying they get a lot of passing trade from those football fans. And the guy who owned the fish and chip shop, he said he was concerned that his business could drop by 25%, and obviously that would have a huge impact on the amount of money that he was making. Now, for number 4, affordable housing. Affordable housing kind of is what it sounds like. It's housing that the local people who just live in the area and earn a sort of local wage can afford. But the thing is, with London, affordable housing can be very difficult to come by. London is very, very crowded and there is a lot of pressure on space, and that means that there's very little affordable housing available at times. And that is because of a housing shortage. Now, when they were interviewing the people who worked in the estate agent at the end, and they were talking about the new housing development that's going to go onto the football stadium, or where the football stadium used to be, they were saying that they hoped they were going to get investors and landlords. So that's good for the estate agents because they can make a lot of money quite quickly and get a nice, quick, easy sale. Unfortunately, if in an area a lot of landlords and investors buy up the property, that pushes the prices up for anyone who wants to buy their own house to live in. And they mentioned buy-to-let mortgages. Now, a buy-to-let mortgage is something you get as a landlord. So that's when you want to buy a house, but you've got no intention of living in it yourself. You're going to rent it out as a landlord. And people do that because it can be a really good investment. You can rent out the house for loads more than you're having to pay for the mortgage. So you're going to make money out of doing it. Unfortunately, what that means is it reduces the amount of houses that are available for normal people who are just trying to buy their first house. There's less and less housing available for them to be able to get their hands on. So that pushes the price up. So when you get lots of investors and lots of landlords in an area, yes, it can be very good for the estate agents, but it's often not very good for the local people because it means that they can't afford to buy a house for themselves and they're left just renting off the landlords. Now, last lesson we looked at life expectancy. We're going to take a little bit of a look at some other facts and figures to compare Knightsbridge and Westham. So what you need to do for me is copy out this table the way it is. You've got 4 different measures of deprivation here. We've got life expectancy, we've got unemployment, we've got how many pupils have got 5 good GCSEs, we've got household income of less than 15,000 and household income above 60,000. You've got some figures already written in for you, and then down the side here you've got the figures that are missing. So what I would like you to try to do is to put these figures where you think they should go on this table. So pause the video and have a go at that, please. And here coming up now are the answers for you. So hopefully you've got something similar to this, if not exactly the same. And what you can see all the way along it is for every single measure of deprivation, Knightsbridge is shown to be way more wealthy than Westham. If we look at the amount of people who are making plenty of money, the amount of people who are on a low income, we've got 9% versus 26%. The amount of pupils who are getting 5 decent GCSEs is way lower in Westham. Unemployment levels are far higher in Westham. So we can see for every single one of these, Westham is definitely the area that isn't doing so well. Now we're going to take these figures and see how we would apply them to an exam question. So here's our question. Compare the levels of deprivation of 2 areas within a city you have studied. So if we're comparing, then we are looking for differences. We are going to use a peel structure. So what that means is we're going to make a point. We are going to use evidence to prove our point. We're going to explain our point, and we're going to try to link those ideas together. And we need to aim for 2 paragraphs. So if we go back to the table, we had 4 different measures of deprivation. So you need to choose 2 that you are going to write about. And in your answer, you're going to do 1 paragraph for each one of those measures of deprivation. So you're going to say what the measure of deprivation is. You are going to use the facts and figures from the table to support it, so the wages or the percentages. You're going to explain what this means from a point of view of deprivation. So you're explaining why it shows deprivation. What does it mean for the people in real life? So if you've chosen to do the one about education levels and GCSE levels, you could write about how if you've got fewer decent GCSEs, that can lead to deprivation because it reduces your ability to get a well-paid job if you've not got a good standard of education. And then you try to need to link those ideas together. So just as last lesson, where we looked at that cycle of deprivation and how they all link into each other, they all cause each other, that's what you need to try to do in your answer. So that low level of education means you can't get such a good job, means you're not going to get such good wages, which means you can't get such a good housing. Okay, so you're showing how it builds up and it links together. Have a go at doing an answer, and then we'll look at a sample answer together. Here's our sample answer, and I have highlighted it to try to show you where we have got point, evidence, explain. So we've got a little introduction just saying where exactly it is we've studied. And then in the yellow, we have got the point we are making. And the 2 points I have chosen are life expectancy and income level. Okay, so there's my basic, what am I writing about? My evidence is then the figures from the table. So I'm pointing out here that the life expectancy in Knightsbridge is 12 years higher than it is in Westham. And then going on to explain why that might be. So I'm saying this maybe is linked to the better diet and education that we've got in Knightsbridge, because people are aware of how to live a healthy lifestyle and they've got good access to healthcare, which means they can get help more easily and quickly if they do fall ill. Okay, so I've got my point, I've got my evidence, I've explained it, and I'm linking together the ideas of diet, education and healthcare. Okay? My second paragraph is the one about income level. So I've gone on to use data from the table, pointing out that in Westham we've got over a quarter of the residents making less than 15,000 a year, whereas in Knightsbridge we have over a quarter of the people earning in excess of 60,000. So they're opposite ends of the scale. Okay, so notice as well that we've used this word whereas, really, really good word to use when you're doing a comparative answer. I've then got my explaining. I'm trying to say why this might be. And so I've said it might be linked to the idea that the Knightsbridge students are getting more GCSEs, therefore they're more likely to get a higher paying job because they've got those higher levels of education. So again, I've got my point, I've got my evidence, I've got my explanation, and I'm linking these ideas together. I've linked together the idea of wages with the idea of education, with the idea of what sort of job you're going to get. So hopefully you can see from that answer that all the way through it, we've got point, evidence, explain, and we're linking them together. So have a look at your own answer, see if it maybe needs a little bit of improvement. As always, if you're stuck, you need a bit of help or support, then please do email your teacher, stay in touch with us and let us know how you are getting on. Okay, thanks everybody. Bye.